Hi, and welcome to the Stephan Livera podcast focused on Bitcoin and Austrian economics. Today, my guest is Aleks Svetski. But first, let me introduce the sponsors of the podcast. So firstly, Kraken. Kraken are the best Bitcoin exchange. Over my years in Bitcoin, I've been really impressed with how they operate. They have a really strong focus on security. They run Kraken security labs. They act ethically in the space. And they're one of the longest standing Bitcoin exchanges, consistently rated the best. They've got a high quality platform with some of the best liquidity in the industry. Recently, Kraken has been making serious progress in the institutional space. It was the first digital asset exchange to have its market data displayed on the Bloomberg terminal, and recently, with their acquisition of Interchange, they are providing best-in-class accounting, reconciliation, and reporting services for cryptocurrency hedge funds, asset managers, and fund administrators. To learn more and sign up, go to the Kraken link in the show notes. Next up, Unchained Capital. They are a Bitcoin financial services company. They're offering a really cool 2 of 3 multi-signature vault product. You can use Trezor or Ledger wallets. You still maintain control with your 2 keys, and that multi-signature helps protect you against the proverbial $5 wrench attack as you can distribute those keys. Customers who create an Unchained Vault also get 3 free months of access to Safety and Immersive's Bitcoin Standard Research Bulletin, a fantastic resource. Unchained also offers Bitcoin collateralized loans, so you can get USD liquidity without selling your Bitcoins, and meaning you don't trigger a capital gains event as well. So you have to consider your own scenario, but this can be tax efficient for a hodler. And then while that loan is outstanding, your Bitcoin is stored in a dedicated multi-signature address under collaborative custody with Unchained. So to learn more and sign up, go to the Unchained Capital link in the show notes. So the episode today is with Aleks Svetski, a return guest. He is the CEO and co-founder of Amber, an Australian Bitcoin company. And so there's been a few changes in the way Amber is working. It's acting more like a stacking sats app. So while he was down in Sydney, I thought it would be good to get him on the show again. And in this interview, we talk a little bit about some of the clashing visions of Bitcoin, comparing things like dollar cost averaging versus lump sum, as well as traders, as well as considering things like Libra, blockchain, and Bitcoin. Just some fair warning though. This episode does have some swearing, so just be warned. And also, we don't get as technical into economics or technical details about Bitcoin, but rather this episode is more about mindsets and ways to think about Bitcoin. So here we go.
We're live. Aleks, welcome back to the show.
Hey, man. This time in person.
Yeah,
Look
exactly.
At this. We're looking at each other like lovers in the air, mate.
So we're here in this hotel in Sydney.
We walked up the stairs. The chicks at the counter are probably like, where are these two guys going? We're doing a podcast, I swear.
We're not even, I swear we're not doing what you think. We're trying to record a Bitcoin podcast.
Yeah, it's all about Bitcoin. I promise. No shitcoin.
Oh, yeah, Jesus. Man. So look, I think the topic for today is clashing visions.
Yep.
Right? And so there are a lot of different clashing visions, obviously. Now, understand, obviously, most of my audience is more global, they're not just Australian, but I think for them, it is still relevant, this whole theme around dollar cost averaging, right? And so within Bitcoin, sometimes we see these debates come up. So quick ones could be between dollar cost averaging and trading, and then the other one is kind of dollar cost averaging versus lump sum. So let's start with trading. So How do you think about the way that you can explain to somebody dollar cost averaging instead of trading?
Well, I can speak from experience, particularly with the trading side of things. So, like, I have probably been trading for a hell of a lot longer than people in the crypto space who have become overnight fucking experts, right, in the last 2 years, right? Because they started trading on Cryptopia or something, and they thought they made mad gains. So, you know, I was there from 2007. I self-taught myself to trade warrants, options, and, you know, CFDs and derivatives. Like, I was, you know, had one of the first IG Markets accounts in Australia. So, like, I was in it from then, and I can tell you from experience, unless you devote all your time, energy, patience to it, and you are really methodical, unemotional, you know, you've got a system that works and it's repeatable, and you run. It's a numbers game. It's a consistency in a numbers game. Unless you're doing that, you're not going to succeed at trading. You know, I've tried to dabble multiple times throughout the years, and it's only when I've sort of committed and done nothing else but trade that I've actually had some level of success in it. So for most people, that's not practical. For most people, they're sold this idea or this vision that, hey, you can trade in your part-time and you become a fucking millionaire, right?
On your break at work.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And that's just not how it works. It's bullshit. And it's, you know, then people run off and start making bots and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, you might get some sort of alpha, or you might be able to take, you know, some sort of advantage of some arb with a bot for a short period of time, but that stuff gets arbed out. And it's just, I personally think it's too much work. The work to the value ratio is shit. Like, if I look back throughout my entire life, the amount of time I've spent trading and what I'm probably up versus what I'm probably down, like, man, I could have worked in McDonald's for fucking more money than the time, effort, and stress I've spent fucking around trading. Like, I've had a few big wins. Like, I was in very early with silver and gold, and me and my brother made a killing out of that. And then, you know, I fucking shorted the market in 2016 when Trump came in, thinking that, yeah, this is a fuck up. You know, this is the GFC thing we've been waiting for. So it's like, I just fundamentally don't think it works. And human beings, we're wired to want to purchase, buy, and get involved when we're happy, when we're euphoric. And when are we most happy and euphoric? Right at the fucking top. And we are wired to run for the hills and get the fuck out of there and sell shit when we're most depressed and sad. And when are we doing that? When shit's dumping. So we inherently do the opposite of what we want to do. So trading, I just think it's... Actually, one more thing. Trading in volatile environments where you get wicked out like a motherfucker, particularly with something as volatile and as illiquid as the shit that we're playing with here with, like, you know, I mean, Bitcoin is liquid, but it's not very liquid, right? And then every other shit coin is like, there's zero liquidity there. Like, you know, I don't care if you made 10,000, you know, percent on some shit coin, you can't sell it out at 10,000%. By the time you sell it out, you'll be back to zero. So I just think all of those things there make for a bad recipe for most people. You know, there might be a select few people who, you know, should go down the trading path. I just don't think it's a smart strategy. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen that new website, DCA.BTC.
Yeah, it's a great site.
Fucking brilliant, right? So we built one for Amber, but this one shits all over us. So I'm going to start sending people there, right? Because it sells our product. Is if you just shut the fuck up and just bought some, irrespective of the price, irrespective of, oh, it might come back a few dollars, I'll buy some more. Like, get your head out of it. You will do far better, and you can go and add value to the world and to society in a way that matters to you, instead of trying to be a fucking crypto bro or a trader bro.
Right, yeah. Now, here's the thing. So, obviously, I'm agreed with you.
Yep.
But the typical way of thinking, right? And maybe it's a masculine thing, it's an overconfidence, right? More drivers think they're a better driver than the average driver. Well, it's like 80% of drivers think they're a better driver than the average driver, right? And that's obviously, it's not true. Same thing with trading, right? There's a lot of people out there who think they're going to be that top 2% or whatever it is. What do you say to those people?
Well, if you're going to do it, devote yourself to it. Like, actually, you know, tell me what, like, let's use an example. Michael Jordan. Was he the best fucking basketball player in his part-time? Sure. So if you're going to do that and you think you're going to be like the top 2% or the top 1%, go and fucking work on Wall Street, start a fund, like do that full time. Don't sit there fucking run YouTube fucking, you know, things and earn your money from that, or run fucking courses. Like, as soon as you see someone running courses or doing YouTube, run the opposite fucking direction. They ain't trading. They're not making money from that. You know, they're making money from the courses.
Selling. Yeah, courses.
Yeah, so,
paid group, right?
Yeah, paid group, right? Yeah. My pump and dump group. So, yeah, like, I don't know, man. Like,
yeah. And what about now? So, look, here's the other one. Dollar cost averaging versus lump sum. So, my quick thoughts on this. So, I think from my understanding of most of the personal finance literature and so on, like, mathematically, if you have the money up front, lump sum is better. However, here's the reality. Most people don't just have a lump sum of money. They have a salary, and they don't necessarily have a lot of money lying around. And the other component is psychological component.
Yes.
So I think DCA, dollar cost averaging, is superior from a psychological point of view. What's your view there?
100%. So the lump sum stuff is, the question doesn't become, do you have the money? The question becomes your timing. And, you know, there's this analogy of timing the market versus time in the market, and DCA gives you the latter, the time in the market versus trying to time shit. So what inevitably happens with people who have a lump sum and they wait to invest, they find it expensive at $1,000 and they buy in at 10,000 when it's cheap, right? You know, or you know, right now 10, and you know they'll be waiting. Like my mum's one of those examples. Drives me nuts and listens to my brother half the time because my brother's not a Bitcoiner. You know, gives me the shits, but you know, I finally convinced her to buy some Bitcoin at 8,000 Australian. So that just before this, you know, run started happening, or just, you know, in the early stages of the run. And she bought some. And, you know, the fucking rally hit 11,000 Australian. And she's like, oh, can we sell it now? And then I'll buy back when it's cheap. I'm like, Ma, just shut up and fucking hold it. And, you know, inevitably, a week of busting my balls, she went and did that. And now she's like, oh, is it ever going to come back down? So she's going to come and buy back when it's fucking 20 grand, I bet you. So that's the lump sum mentality. And you end up just burning yourself along the way. Whereas if you just continually buys, like it just, I don't know, I think, you know, in the Bitcoin space, here we are talking about, you know, low time preferences and, you know, thinking long term, and, you know, that predicates an appreciation of time. And then we go and spend all our time trying to time the fucking market or trade, instead of appreciating our time enough to just say, all right, I'm going to allocate consistently without thinking about it. This is a land grab at the moment. You know, the analogy, I was on a podcast earlier today to some, like, you know, no coiners and noobs. And the analogy I gave them, I said, buying Bitcoin today is like being a dude thousands of years ago, swapping rocks for gold to people who have no fucking idea what the gold might have been worth. At that point in time, they were like, fuck it, I'll take the rocks, here's my gold. And some smart dude is just accumulating, collecting that gold, you know, before it's been priced properly. So that's the thing you've got at the moment. So, you know, yes, lump sum will work if you want to, you know, hold it, you know, for the long term. But most people, I think, will end up succumbing to their emotions, and most people will end up lump summing, you know, on or near a peak, and they'll end up fucking shitting their pants right down the bottom. And it's just unfortunate. So if you DCA your whole way through, I just think it's the absolute best strategy for 99.9% of people.
Right, and so I'm totally agreed. I think, you know, really buying just regularly is a great strategy. Now, the other component that's difficult, right? So many of my listeners tend to be the more kind of intermediate or advanced level Bitcoiners, so they probably don't have an issue with this. What the deal for them is more, how do they tell their friends,
yes,
hey, here's how you think about it? Because most of them, they are, for their friends, they're the Bitcoin guy, right? Their friends or their noob family will come to them being like, oh, hey man, what do I do? Should I buy this Bitcoin now? And they are struggling to teach them, hey, don't just throw it all in, just like, you know, slowly, you know, take a position slowly but surely. How do you think about communicating that?
Jesus, that's like asking me how to describe Bitcoin in one sentence. Man.
I mean, the change in mindset.
Yeah,
right? How do you get them to change that mindset from just like it's a one-shot investment to a regular
it's
amount?
A regular, yeah. I've been playing with this recently, and I feel like, you know, that gold analogy that I just mentioned is like sort of collecting gold before everybody else understands what it's worth. Is kind of like I've been seeing people open their eyes to that suggestion. Another one is, you know, I really talk about the fact that, and I kind of use myself as an example. I say, look, I refuse to hold my money in something that continually is depreciated and is losing value, you know, because it's being inflated or because of interest rates or whatever other, you know, exogenous or endogenous sort of, you know, circumstances or effects. So I said, I'm personally trying to accumulate as much of this asset as I can. Now, I do it regularly every week. So I kind of use myself as an example, but I kind of set myself up as an extreme example of someone who's trying to swap every piece of shitty fiat that he's got to Bitcoin. And as a result, I'm just gaining territory. So then when I explain that to people, I'm saying, look, you might not be as crazy as me and you might just want to get some exposure. Here's a way. So, I mean, I still haven't, I don't know if that answers your question, because I still haven't found like a really clear...
There may not be an easy answer.
Yeah, that may not be. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and part of that is also automating it, right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
the other factor for most people, unless they are like extremely disciplined, they'll let it slip.
Yep, 100%.
Right. So how do you think about ways to try to get them doing it regularly?
2 words: download Amber. But
Yeah.
seriously, I just think there's the whole reason I built this thing, man, is to just remove that excuse of, I got to log on. I got to do this. I got to do that. And then when you log on, you're like looking at the price. You're like, I'll just set a limit order here, and maybe it'll just come and fill me. And then it doesn't. It continues up. Exactly. And then what do? You end up chasing it. Then you're like, fuck it, I'll just market order up here. And then it drops back to where you had your original limit order, and you want to kill yourself. So like, I was speaking with Haas, from Australia, Haas McCook. Shout out to Haas. And he was just saying like, look, dude, he goes, because he's been a Bitcoiner for a while, right? And he said, I wish I could have just set up something years ago that just 9 a.m. every day, irrespective of the price, just bought the fucking thing. Because he goes, every time I go into an exchange, I do that. I try and, limit order and try and be smart and try and apply my human ego to it, which is I'm smarter than the market and I don't know what's going to happen. And then I just fuck myself over in the process. So yeah, I just think the genesis of products like what we're trying to build with Amber, I hope will solve a lot of that conundrum for people who, I mean, in today's day and age, are too lazy to fucking log into an app, because we've got first world problems,
Right,
to worry about. So, I hope that they can just download it, fucking whack their BSB and account number in it, and just direct debit out a fucking amount. So set an amount, set a frequency, and fuck off.
Right, yeah, and that's perfect, right? Now, here's the other thing. I think think of it this way. So imagine, right, again, I don't have a crystal ball, but imagine in a year or two we hit another crazy FOMO. Dollar cost averaging as a habit may help you then as well, because it might stop you FOMOing in with your life savings, right?
Yep.
Do you want to touch on that?
Yep. Well, we saw it with people FOMOing in, like, mortgaging their house at 20,000, right?
Yeah, terrible.
Great job, pal. Just, if you can hold on for another 10 years, whoever you are, just hold, bro. You'll be all right. Just move into a homeless shelter for the time being. Just hold on to that Bitcoin.
The ultimate low time preference.
Exactly. You'll be okay one day. But look, it's exactly what it does, right? Because on the way, what it does is it teaches a really interesting discipline, which is you're buying more when it's cheaper and you're buying less when it's expensive. And markets are just merely a representation of what's cheap and what's expensive based on the collective understanding of society or the market participants at that point in time. So what we're seeing with Bitcoin is just people, a large majority of people who don't fucking get it, a few people who do get it, and here we are all, trading and, agreeing on price or disagreeing on price or whatever we're doing along the way. And, those of us who are smarter, let's not say smarter, who understand it deeper or who've peeled more layers of the onion off, we're sort of on the side of realizing that this is undervalued. So we're, trying to accumulate. Whilst, there's others who completely don't understand that shit. So they think it's gone to zero, like the Rubinis of the world. So, they keep shorting on BitMEX and losing all their fucking money, and good on them. But, doing the DCA, again, it just removes that emotion and then just replaces it with this sensible buy more when it's cheap, buy less when it's expensive, and remove the noise from the market, because there's just so much noise in markets. There's noise in life. There's noise in the world. There's noise on fucking Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. It's too much fucking noise. At least, products like Amber will help remove the noise from your, financial life. There's my new slogan.
Right.
Remove the noise.
That's it. Yeah, that's great. And so, look, I know you recently slightly pivoted Amber as well, right? Because in the past, and I think the first time I had you on the show, there was a slightly different conception. It was more like a roundup app, right? It was like Acorns, but for Bitcoin kind of thing. Whereas now it's more DCA. Do you want to talk to the changes?
Really simple change. We removed the spare change element because spare change is limited by the banking infrastructure. People need to give up their banking credentials to allow a product such as, Amber or Raise or Acorns or any of those to basically look at all your transactions, work out the roundups, and then perform a direct debit. But the direct debit still can't be performed till you reach a threshold of $5 anyway. So we sort of thought, well, fuck the roundups. We're not debiting till $5, so just give people the ability to just debit from $5.
Pick how much they want.
Exactly. And now you've got more control. You can DCA in, it's up to you, and we can throw out the whole spare change stuff. We may bring spare change back, but we will bring it back in a different iteration. So I don't even know if this is possible yet, but maybe integrating with Apple Pay somehow, or so that way we don't have to look at your transaction, or we don't have to look at your statement. We can just take it on a per transaction basis. I don't know how that will work with the banking infrastructure because it's all just so shit and fragmented, but we may be able to bring it back in that type of genesis, or we may look at introducing an Amber card, where you can load it up and you can use it, and then we can round up off our own system internally. And that is easy, and that just sort of gives people that gimmicky thing again. But I just think we sort of transcended the roundup narrative and we went for the DCA narrative, which was the crux of why we did roundups in the first place. And it's just made the product so much smoother. If anyone was listening to us back then and, didn't want to sort of share their bank credentials with the Fabric software they were using and all that sort of stuff, now you don't need to. BSB, account number, Bob's your uncle.
Off you go. Nice.
Yeah.
So a couple things there then. What about the ability to withdraw the Bitcoins out? So where are you guys on that?
It's available, so people just need to ask for it.
Right.
And the reason we don't market it too much now is because we don't have an automated system. Because we cold store everything, it takes a couple days to get the multi-sig done, yada, 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 and send it to them. So we don't advertise it in the app BTC withdrawals, go hard, because then I'll end up having
a lot of transaction
requests.
fees.
Yeah, exactly. Well, too many requests to do it. Exactly. And because we do it manually at the moment, it's just a pain in the ass. So if people request it, done. Within probably 48 hours, they got their Bitcoin, and happy days. In the coming weeks, we're almost there. We've made it a lot faster now. Before, it was taking 3-4 days because we had to, access the cold storage and do all that. Now what we've done is we've actually just got our own float. So it doesn't actually touch the customer's funds. We just have our own float and we pay it out of our own float. So it's quicker, and we can actually even probably get it done same day now. And then we just balance out the amounts later.
Right, yeah, because I think that's a legitimate concern customers might have. Obviously, rule one of Bitcoin, not your keys, not your coins, right? Yeah. So it might be a good way for them to slowly start accumulating, right? Get a newbie in.
Yep.
And then once they've kind of accumulated, maybe a few $100, now that's time where they need to start learning to take possession.
Yeah, so we're going to introduce a DCA for withdrawals, which is average withdrawals or automated withdrawals, which is when we release withdrawals, we'll release it with some features that are hit a certain threshold of Bitcoin or dollars, you can set some rules in, and it'll automatically send to your whitelisted address. You don't have to fucking think about it. So again, I just want to make this so automated that you're accumulating and then you're storing your Bitcoin in a way that you're as safe as possible, and you take your own, you get out of your own way.
Yeah, because I think we are our own worst enemies with some of this.
We are, yeah.
And it's very easy to start thinking, what if I try to sell and buy a bit cheaper and whatever, all that, rather than sort of really zooming out, which is a more appropriate way to think of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else to touch on with Amber?
No, man, look,
let's go into, I think you had an article about, it was, again, this theme of clashing visions, right? You got Libra, right? This idea of a corporate-created shitcoin.
Yep.
And then you've got... blockchain technology, right? Which I know
whatever that means.
I mean, you and I have both been very vocal about our thoughts on the so-called blockchain technology. And then you got Bitcoin, right? Which we both love. So tell us a little bit about how you're thinking there.
Where do I start? Well, I'm just trying to see. I'm actually going to pull up that article, so I've got it in front of me. And then we can hit a couple of those notes. There we go. Yeah, so I just I managed to get it listed on blockchain.news.
Oh, right. What is it? I don't even know what that is.
It's some online publication, and they do news and events and everything, what's going on. Right. But and then I basically so the name of the article is Blockchain, Bitcoin, and Libra. what's bullshit, what's brilliant, and what's Big Brother, basically.
Right.
And I think one of the key takeaways that I got in there was Jameson Lopp did a really good deep dive onto what is Libra? Is it actually a blockchain, or they're just using that term like every other fucking large corporate uses the term to sound hip, right? They're just using some sort of slightly more advanced database infrastructure, if that, or maybe it's got some redundant fucking servers on it, or it's got a consortium that's managing it. So none of that stuff matters. And what I tried to run through in the article was that one of the things I think that makes Bitcoiners angry about the whole blockchain narrative is that there might be some benefit to consortiums sharing a ledger or sharing some sort of state thing within their consortium, and they might use it to get better checks and balances, and they might create some form of efficiencies in there. I don't fucking know how their infrastructure currently works, but there may be some commercial internal benefit for them. I think the problem is that they're taking the Bitcoin narrative, which is this narrative about like the fundamental reinvention of money, payments, sovereignty, identity, like all of these things that Bitcoin reinvents, decentralization, etc. And they're trying to use the ethos, or I think you've mentioned this word before. It's kind of like affinity. They're using the affinity of this invention of Bitcoin and applying it to the fucking minute incremental innovation that they might be able to suck out of hashing fucking blocks of data together, or whatever they're doing on their side of things. And I think what that does is it inherently dilutes the strength or the depth of what Bitcoin represents. And on top of that, they go one step further by saying, oh yeah, Bitcoin was this thing, but we've transcended this.
Gone beyond.
Exactly. When in reality they've like taken a fucking breadcrumb, and that they may have created some sort of efficiency within their own infrastructure, and that's fine. But that is not going to impact society. It's not going to change anyone's fucking life. It might add some dollars to their bottom line, or more realistically, it might add some extra, dollars to IBM and the Big Four who are selling fucking blockchain
services.
solutions, exactly, for 10x because they slapped the word DLT or blockchain on it. Like, that's the real benefit there. So, and one of the things I noted in there was, Libra didn't give a fuck about blockchain. What Libra is an attempt to build or to create a non-sovereign money. That's the fucking battleground, not blockchain. No one gives a fuck about, no one with a brain gives a fuck about blockchain. What people care about, or what the real fight is about a money, literally a new form of money. And that's why governments and all this sort of shit are up in arms about Libra, because now, like, I actually think that Libra's probably red-pilled more people into Bitcoin than most things, because seriously, because people now have the conception that maybe a non-sovereign, non-state issued currency could be a real thing. And but that Bitcoin thing, isn't that similar? Oh, wait a minute, but Bitcoin is like the antithesis. Like, it's the money owned by the people that's non-sovereign, that is uninflatable, blah 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 blah. Whereas this thing it's non-sovereign, but feels a bit fucking 1984 to me. So it's like, initially, I was like really confused about. I wasn't sure if it was a payment mechanism or if it was a new money or what the fuck it was. But now, like, the more I've sort of, got my head around it, I'm like, this is big. It's very big for Bitcoin because it inherently validates Bitcoin, and it also validates Bitcoin's decision, or the broad consensus to keep Bitcoin to optimize for sovereignty, for censorship resistance, for uninflatability, for uncompromisability, whilst all the other shit coins optimized for smart contracts, for speed, and for all the shit that Libra could do with a fucking snap of a finger. Literally made everything else obsolete and validated Bitcoin, and has put in the minds of people the seed that a non-state issued currency is possible. So I think it's going to be really fucking interesting long term.
Yeah, for sure. Let's simplify it a little bit. So one way to think of it might be pipelines and then the oil that flows
Yes.
through that
Yes,
pipeline,
yes, yes,
right?
yes,
So
yes,
with
yes.
Bitcoin, obviously, this can get confusing, right? Because in the old days, we had this convention of capital B Bitcoin and small b Bitcoin, right? One referred to the payment network, as it were, or maybe you want to, if you want to, not get too triggered, it's like, think of it like a settlement network, right? And Bitcoin, the monetary token, right?
Yes.
But then Libra has its own kind of equivalence, right? Because it's got obviously its own kind of like a basket currency, right? Which will be comprised of many other monies and its own little highly centralized, highly controllable, censored pipeline
Payment system,
through
yep,
which the oil, the Libra oil can flow through,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So how do you think about, the way you compare those in terms of like the Bitcoin oil versus the Libra oil? you
Yeah,
know?
really good analogy, man. I actually hadn't heard of that before today. What to comment?
To me, it really, the way I think about it, it's like it shows that even Bitcoin's payment network is superior from that kind of non-censorable way, right? Because obviously the questions all the US government people were asking were like, hey, can Milo Yiannopoulos use Libra coin? And David Marcus didn't have a good answer, right? Because they nailed him on this.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's just, I think this meme sums it up is Facebook launches Libra, US government sends cease and desist to Zuckerberg. Satoshi launches Bitcoin, US government sends cease and desist to ... It's
Exactly.
like that piece right there sums it up because the Facebook and the consortium and the whole Libra thing, they're not fucking stupid. They're not, they didn't go out to create an enterprise blockchain. They went out to literally do what Bitcoin was doing, but, within their infrastructure. So within their pipes and with their own oil. And that is like, that's the paradigm shift of our generation. The paradigm shift of the prior generation was the internet coming up, right? The paradigm shift of this generation is the creation of a new money. And, they're going for the fucking big, ticket, which is as you've described it, the creation of a new oil that is the thing that, society functions off, and then the infrastructure and the pipeline that's going to be built off that. So I guess the question is going to then just come to people is, which oil do you want to use? Do you want to use the one that can very easily go down the path of becoming China's social credit score system,
and it can get blocked very easily, right?
Correct.
It's not very liquid, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Viscous or whatever.
Yeah. And then it's got trapdoors and shit everywhere. You know what I mean? So like, versus the one like, I got asked by Brady from Citizen Bitcoin ages ago to sort of say, what do I think the next 50 years looks like?
Yeah.
I actually now think the next 50 years looks like a world where you've got liberty, freedom, and economic rights, and the ability to have property rights, privacy, and all that sort of stuff on this Bitcoin economic network, versus a world that's increasingly feeling like, an Orwellian 1984 / Chinese credit score system / Zuckbucks. You got to ask fucking, you got to like, you can't say shit. You like the wrong thing on fucking Facebook, and all of a sudden you can't buy your groceries. And you fucking go hungry for 3 days, and they teach you a lesson, and you never say that shit again.
You get sent to re-education camp.
Yeah, dude. It's so. I mean, people really need to think about how important the Bitcoin innovation really is, because without that, we're all fucked.
Oh, I'm totally with you, right? And I think the other thing to layer on is Patrick McHenry. Patrick McHenry, rather. He said there's no capacity to kill Bitcoin.
Yes. Oh,
very important.
Yep.
Because he was a ranking member on that financial committee. And if he is saying, look, America is a country of innovation, we don't want to unduly or even try to shut this down because, first of all, we know we couldn't, even if we tried, and we would just push all the innovation elsewhere.
Outside. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, America needs more of him, honestly. And it'll start sounding like what fucking America was 100 years ago, not the clusterfuck that it's become. But that's my comment there.
And so, look, now here's the other thing. Let's layer on another idea. So those people who are already libertarians, they'll be down with this straight away. But let's remember, the percentage of libertarians probably in Australia, if I had to guess, it would be like 1 or 2% if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So how do you appeal to those other people? One thing I'm thinking is orange coin number go up, right? It's literally, they come for the gains.
Yep.
What do you think?
Seriously. Well, again, I'm just going to tie it back to Amber, not in a selfish answer, but like as a... when people ask me, they're like, oh, you know, how are you going to get people to buy Bitcoin? And so we've optimized it as an investment app. That's sort of how we position it. It's a micro investment app. Like we originally had a lot of the wording was about savings and micro saving, and like we wanted to treat Bitcoin as this savings tool. But you know what we found was that people were like not interested in saving. Like if they wanted to use a savings tool, they were just going to use their bank account, and you know, and trying to like. So we're like, okay, the best way to red pill these people is to give them the promise, or at least the indication that there's a better future ahead, and by you know, subscribing to the idea of orange coin go up, you know, they will have the opportunity for a better future. So fundamentally, I mean, greed is the human emotion that's the driver that, you know, is behind all of our innovation, all of our striving to do more, etc. You know, like, you know, Gordon Gekko was right. Greed is fucking good. You know, without that inherent emotion inside us, we wouldn't get off our fucking asses. You know what I mean? So, if we can appeal to that initially, and then somehow it's the Bitcoin meme, right? I came for the fucking gains, and I stayed for the, you know, community, or I stayed for the drugs, or I stayed for
the sound money, right?
The sound money, or whatever other, you know, reason it is. So I think that's the best way to red pill people, is to say that, you know, hey, $10 worth of Bitcoin 5 years ago is now worth 30 grand. Here's $10. You know, get involved, get started. You know, and when people start, like, man, my girlfriend's parents, like, convinced them to buy some Bitcoin too. And now the dad, he's on the fucking app every day looking at the price and sending me price reports. It's like, Bitcoin's at 15,000 now. Should I buy more? Should I buy? It's amazing what it does to people, right? So it's yeah, fascinating, man. So I think orange coin go up is the initial piece that we need to get. You know, it's the initial crack and crevice. Now, as things progress geopolitically and macroeconomically and all that sort of stuff, and you know, the narratives of, you know, store of value and, you know, self-sovereignty start to really pick up, you know, we'll find people from other walks of life that are interested. You know, we'll get the doomsday preppers. We'll get the fucking...
Oh, we've already got the preppers, I think.
I think we've got a lot of preppers, but I still feel like a lot of the preppers are going more like, oh, well, you know, when the bombs drop, you're not going to have your Bitcoin. I'll have my gold and my lead and my guns, you know?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, they'll become increasingly interested in Bitcoin, and so all of that sort of stuff will happen.
Yeah, like maybe those guys will be part of the impetus for things like ham radio or Lot 49, mesh networking, these kinds of ideas as well. So that's another kind of thing. So I think that's another thing as well. It's kind of like Bitcoin is this Pac-Man, and it's going around the world just eating up different, you know, people, and then it's taking on a new whole market, you know?
Dude, I fucking love that analogy. I'm literally writing an article called Bitcoin is the Pac-Man.
Oh, well, there you go.
I swear to God. It is that though, right? It is like literally eating up not only all the other fucking shit coins, but eating up all the other fucking money, all the other narratives, all this other, you know, infrastructure, payment infrastructure. It's eating everything up. Like,
I'll tell you what, another thing that's really interesting as well is that despite the millions of dollars of marketing budget that these shitcoins have and that the blockchain technology people have had, they still were not able to beat the power of the ideas of
correct.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The ideas of Bitcoin were stronger than all of that.
Well, money talks, man. That's the thing. So, like, it is that is testament, at least, to the fact that we still have at least the remnant of a society that is still, you know, partly capitalist, and that, you know, people's self-interest is still what's more important. And, you know, collectively we will move towards what we are. We'll move towards what is of interest to ourselves first and foremost. And, you know, Bitcoin represents the first time we've been able to create a system where, whilst working in our own self-interest, we're working for the interest of the collective, right? And it's just so fucking powerful that that was able to be created. And whilst everything else is like this, you know, working in a blockchain self-interest doesn't like create anything, and it's like just noise for somebody else. Like, it's just, I feel sorry for everyone on that side of the field.
To the poor XRP army.
Oh, dude, for all of them. For the social justice warriors in Ethereum, for the deranged lunatics in the XRP army, for the fucking shitcoin bag holders who are sinking. Like, man, it's... And then for the no-coiners who are too fucking arrogant or too ignorant to even want to listen to it. Like, I got knocked back by, Koshi, like, the other day, like, because we're doing some PR stuff for Amber. And literally, here's the feedback that I'm getting from the media companies at the moment is we don't want to cover Bitcoin because we don't think it's a good thing to cover as an investment product. But we'd be interested to hear about, the underlying technology if you'd like to comment on that. And I lost my shit. Like, the shit that we got back from Koshi was like, yeah, sorry, we'll never support scams or Ponzi schemes on our network. I was like, are you that like intellectually like ignorant or lazy to not want to look into it? And what I told a couple of them, I was like, all right, I said, I'll be available when Bitcoin's back at 100 grand and you'll be, scrambling to find someone to talk about it. So it's just... I don't know, man. Like,
yeah, they're stuck in blockchain land. And here's another funny one, right? So obviously you and I are in this world, right? But people who are looking at it from the outside, they think, oh, you Bitcoin people, you're being tribal. Why are you so tribalistic? Why don't you just be open and accept all the cryptos together? Right? And it should be friendly to everyone. And it's like,
Kumbaya.
Hold on, I don't think you understand what's going on here. Like, what do you think about that?
Well, dude, it's... Well, tell me where you're going with the tribalism piece.
Yeah, so for example, like they will think of it like, oh, you guys are paying out all the other cryptocurrencies. Mm. Like from our point of view, we're like, well, hold on, those cryptocurrencies are not as liquid, they're not as secure, they don't have the same real backing or decentralization of Bitcoin. So from their point of, like from the outsider point of view, they think, oh, you guys are just being tribal. Whereas from our point of view, it's more like, no, we actually think there are better characteristics about Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay, cool. So what you're saying there is people perceive our arguments as tribal, whereas we understand our arguments as logical, right? Yeah, correct. 100%, man. I mean, it's just the people who say that, they say that because they've taken an anecdote somewhere or they've heard something that sounds nice. Like, I'll give you an idea, an example. Equality. As a concept, sounds nice, right? Everyone's like, oh yeah, we should all be equal, right? But when you start to understand it practically, you start to realize that the only way, like, to create equality is through violence. So then you got to ask the person, well, do you believe in violence? No, I think we should have no violence. And then when you start to even question that, it's like, how do you enforce no violence? Through, violence? Like, there's no other way. So a lot of these, outsiders or shitcoiners and all of that, they buy into these veneer ideologies where they hear things that sound theoretically nice, but in practice don't fucking function, because in the real world, everything comes with a trade-off. There is no such thing as being on the complete one side of a fucking spectrum. Everything has a trade-off, and I love Nick Carter's article that he wrote about, like, Bitcoin chose consciously the trade-offs that it wanted to make along the way.
Right. Bitcoin's biting the bullet.
Correct. It was biting the bullet. Exactly. That article was fucking brilliant because it chose those trade-offs along the way consciously, not the deranged fantasies of the shitcoiners who went out and built their own things, who are like, oh, I'm here to fix Bitcoin. Oh, looks like I can't fix Bitcoin, so I'm going to go spin off my own shitcoin and I'm going to fucking be the savior of the world. And, they think they've made no trade-offs. But, let's bring it back to Libra. Libra is an example of them becoming now fucking irrelevant because nobody's going to use their shitcoin with fast payments when you got 2 billion people on Libra and they've got 6 people still trading their coin on fucking Binance, right?
Right.
It's like, it just shows that the real world, the world of practicality, the world of logic comes with the ability to be... comes with the requirement to understand things deeply, and in understanding things deeply comes with the realization that there are trade-offs in the real world that you must make, and in the process of making those, you need to optimize for the outcome that you want to achieve, and that's what the people outside of Bitcoin don't realize. They think like, oh, you're just deflationists, or you're just a fucking bigot, or you're toxic, or you're a tribalist. That they haven't taken a moment to understand the depth of thinking that we've gone through, over the years of being involved in this.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think one point you're making there is kind of like Libra is killing the shitcoins, right? Or every other shitcoin, right? It still is itself a shitcoin, but it's basically killed all the other shitcoins. And then so it's kind of like becoming this almost like a three-way race then, if you will, like the kind of Libra, USD, or Bitcoin. It's kind of like, getting to the final boss. So
hell yeah.
I guess closing thoughts then, how do you think it plays out? How does Bitcoin, if it does it win against those?
I'm going to answer it in a funny way, all right? So, because I believe money is fundamentally a belief system.
All right. So Neil Woodfine is on your case right now. Watch out.
Look, I believe fundamentally what we do as human beings is, in order for us to cooperate, in a society and to build a society, we need to function off, these shared beliefs or these shared fictions, whatever the fuck we're going to frame them as. And what we do, though, is the shared fictions or the shared beliefs that are the most important, we try and find things that can embody, or objects or items or units that can embody the elements that allow that shared fiction to be as robust as possible. So the reason to this date that fiat is, still around, or that, we can sit here and I can give you $20 cash and you'll accept it from me. I hope.
I won't.
Well, fuck you.
No, go on.
But the reason we can still do that is because there is still a shared belief that is, what that is. And, what we see with hyperinflation is just the collapse of that shared belief, or the collapse of that shared fiction. So what I think we've got, moving forward, is we've got the broad-based belief that's been built up over generations for the US dollar, then the emergence of these new things, like the two new horses, which is Bitcoin and Libra, and who can gain market share based on initial belief. And a lot of people think Libra is going to win that race out, but what they're missing is the fact that Bitcoin has objective qualities of its nature that will help reinforce a much stronger, more ingrained belief. Because, let's use this. Let's use an analogy of, we could build a chair out of wood, or a chair out of fucking paper. It's still, we can both objectively believe that it's a chair, but we can both subjectively believe that it's a chair, but one objectively has different attributes. Exactly.
Right, yeah.
So, and that is where, so then more people are going to want that chair. So over time, more people are going to want the thing with objectively better characteristics. That doesn't mean that money's not a belief system. It still is a belief system, but we choose to believe, or in our own self-interest, we will converge to the belief system we'll converge to the unit that best supports that belief system.
Right. So I think
it's a more nuanced argument.
Yeah. So I think the way some Bitcoiners have spoken about this is like, instead of shared belief, it's more like shared recognition, right? It's more like this kind of idea that if you're going to use a certain money, you should be using a money in your own perception. You should be thinking, well, hang on, all these other people are already using that money. I might use that too, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so I think this tension then between is it a money or is it not? I think what it's saying is what caused those other people to use that money. Mm-hmm. And part of that was certain characteristics, as have been discussed earlier on the podcast, like stock to flow, safety as well, discussing around ideas of salableness. Yep. So I think that is kind of what that argument, in my view, that's what that's getting at.
Well, let me layer it with one more nuance, is the closer you get to the core of it, the more it becomes objective. The further out you get, the more it becomes a subjective belief, because the people 20, 30 years from now who are using Bitcoin and not even touching the core protocol, maybe using layer 2, layer 3, Lightning or whatever, they're going to be using it because the next guy's fucking using it, not because they understand the core.
Oh, of course.
Right? So what happens is, as money progresses, it must be a belief system that more and more people buy into and believe, not necessarily because they understand the core elements of it, but because the consensus of the ecosystem or the society within which they're in operates off that belief system. So, and the thing is, when you remove the core attributes, like what we did with fiat, then the thing can crumble in on itself. And that's how you get this crazy fucking hyperinflation or this crazy collapse of an economic system or a belief system of some sort. If you could not get you could not get a collapse of something if it wasn't a belief system in the first place. Or if there's not a belief system in there. So money fundamentally is a belief system, but the core and its what's in the center actually fucking matters if we want it to subsist.
Right. So I guess putting on my Neil Woodfine cap, I would say maybe we're just talking to different senses of what is a belief system, right? So I think the point that, say, Neil Woodfine or even I have made this similar kind of argument as well is that what drove that center part, that was what made the money. The other stuff just flowed as a result of it anyway, So like, yes, it's true. There's other people who believe in it and so on, but I think it was all because which one was the best money, and then the belief systems were downstream of the objective characteristics. That's probably one way to think of it.
Yes. So broadly speaking, correct. So that's that. Yes. So I agree with you there. There's probably another argument, but we won't go through this here. Maybe we'll link to my article about Homo sapiens and evolution and how money came to be as a concept. But I think there's an argument for the idea that money, even as a concept, yes, we might choose the best objective representation of money to be the best money. So I agree with that. But just the very creation of money as a concept, the reason it exists is because we choose to play a game for the purpose of building society. So as a result, we need some sort of fabric or some sort of glue within society, which is this ability to do work, perform value, add, do something in society, and, have a measure of that we can then, use in order to interact with other human beings. So that, it goes a little bit deeper, but it's probably not a, it moves into philosophy, right?
Yeah.
And it starts to get...
It's more like political philosophy and like kind of how do societies organize themselves.
Correct,
and,
and
like
all of
that
that sort of stuff. Exactly.
So
It basically states that the very essence of requiring money is that we as a society need to, function. So we choose to create this thing called money in order to cooperate. The same way as we've created things called religion or states or laws or governments, etc. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Look, we should probably wrap it up before we get kicked out of this room, and we have to promise them we were just recording a Bitcoin podcast. I swear. But anyway, before we let you go, tell my listeners, those of them who haven't heard you before, where can they follow you and where can they find Amber?
Sweet. So Twitter, Aleks Svetski. So it's spelled a bit funny. It's Aleks Svetski. So I'm on Twitter. I'm always ranting about some stupid shit on there. I'm on LinkedIn and stuff like that, but that stuff is like become cancer. Yeah, exactly. It's become absolute cancer. And with Amber, if you're in Australia, we can definitely service you. Amber.app. That's it. We're not available overseas yet, but hopefully we'll be in UK and Europe before the end of this year. So fingers crossed. And other than that, thank you again for having me on, bro. Really enjoyed this. And looking forward to doing a round 3, maybe 2020.
Hope you guys enjoyed the chat with Aleks. Just remember, check out the sponsors, Kraken and Unchained Capital. Also, if you want to subscribe or get the show notes to my show, you can find them on the website stephanlivera.com. Lastly, just a reminder to check out ministryofnodes.com.au, especially for the Australian listeners. We've got workshops coming up and we are producing content for you guys, so make sure you check that out as well. That's it from me. Thanks, guys. See you next time.